Is Jeff Rowe, a Republican strategist, the former campaign manager for Ted Cruz, coming to us live from Houston. Jeff, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
So you heard President Obama there recommend that Donald Trump stop whining. Do you agree with the president? Should he?
Well, I think it's a event to have the president of the leader of the free world with a foreign dignitary in the Rose Garden be commenting on the presidential election. But that being said, I think what Donald Trump is doing is two different things. One, he's trying to rally his base, to say, look, we have to pay attention here. Anything can happen. In fact, previous elections were under some scrutiny for vote rigging, if you will. But the second thing he's really trying to do is a call to arms that this is about what the future of our country is at stake. We have to have everyone focused like a laser to win this election. Don't let anything pass. And on the one side, you have the Democrats that say there's never any election fraud at all. And the Republicans, of course, that say there's tens of millions of votes being cast inappropriately. That neither are true. The reality, though, is it's somewhere in the middle. I mean, I've come from a state where a dog was registered to vote in 2000 in the hanging Chad election. And so it's not that it doesn't happen. It does take vigilance. And it's not unusual to have election monitors at election sites. That's routine in politics. And yet it's made to be a big thing. So I think this has much to do about nothing.
Well, I guess I would just push back a little on that, Jeff. When you put it into context and into perspective, while there may be some instances overall, when you look at the broad scale of ballots cast around the country, studies have shown that it is practically, to a practical degree, non-existent. Republicans, people in your own party, have come out and pushed back. I look at what Marco Rubio did at that debate last night, really fired up, talking about how he believes this is dangerous, essentially, for Trump to keep pushing this idea that the system is rigged. Do you think it's dangerous?
I'm not sure that I would go that far. How much election fraud is too much? I guess to a certain degree. I've read those studies. The studies are, how do you study fraud? How do you start credit card fraud? How do you study any fraud? It has to happen. You have to witness it, and then you have to investigate it. So I think, again, I don't think it's the main focus of the election. I think one of the things that Donald's speaking of, and what is certainly his surrogates are speaking about, is that we continue to look at national polls where New York and California are overrepresented compared to Idaho and Mississippi, based on what the national general population vote will be. So I think that media narrative is where is a safer place for them to go, for sure, talking about rigging. But overall, I think we do need to be vigilant on election fraud. I don't think any is acceptable, and the studies show that there is some, but it's hard to study something that's hard to find.
So one of the things you mentioned right at the top of this was this idea that Trump is trying to rally his base, which he is. But one of the things that I know you're looking at as a data guy is the intensity, the enthusiasm of his supporters. Our newest NBC News Wall Street Journal poll shows that that intensity is dropping. If you're advising Donald Trump, how much of a concern is that to you if you're looking at the numbers?
It's a huge concern, and I would say it comes on the heels of what I think, and I'm not sure, but at least in my lifetime, is probably the worst 2 weeks in American political history for a candidate. But you look at the heels of that, you have a margin of error race all over the country. You look in Florida, where he's either within the margin or tied. Ohio, where he's up. Iowa, where he's up. North Carolina, where he's either tied or down within the margin. I mean, this is still a very close race. What the Clinton campaign wants to do is say, oh, look, we're winning so big, we're going to go to Arizona and shadow box with a couple $1 million and a surrogate visit. Look, we're going to go into Georgia. Not at all. It's silly. In fact, I think they got to be a little bit careful. What they're trying to do is just say this is a fait accompli, when in fact it's a very competitive race in those swing states where this campaign will be won or lost. Now, you're polling Nevada. That's a bad sign. That has a large proportion. In fact, I believe it's the highest proportion of white, no college degree voters in America. So that's a bad number, down 7. That's outside the margin of error. But that's an outlier. Most of the polls I've seen there have him down or tied within the margin of error.
Before I let you go here, Jeff, obviously you ran Ted Cruz's campaign for a while there. For months and months and months, your former candidate didn't endorse Donald Trump. He did, and then 2 weeks later, this Access Hollywood audio came out. These accusations from women came out. Do you regret that Ted Cruz made the endorsement he did when he did?
Oh, well, I don't live with regrets. I live in the windshield, not the rearview mirror. But for him, I think it was not acceptable to him that withholding his support might lead to a Hillary Clinton presidency. And that was a decision that he came to, he arrived to, he struggled with for quite some time. Obviously, he had not reached that conclusion by Cleveland, but it was one that he came to naturally on his own terms, on his own timetable. And I know he sleeps very well at night knowing that. And he's working very hard to get his Senate colleagues reelected. So regardless of who wins, we have a check and balance on the White House. All
right, Republican strategist Jeff Roe joining us here on MSNBC. Thanks so much. Today, we